Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. This is your host, Bob Gibbons.
And I'm your other host, Stephen Nooner. And I'm excited to have a friend of mine here. Michael Peticolas is here with Peticolas Brewing Company. They've been in business 6 years, based here in Dallas. And they have a really cool story. But if you want to learn more about them, check out peticolasbrewing.com. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. I appreciate the little introduction. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're looking forward to it. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to learn. Craft beer is your business, and that's such a booming business these days, it seems. So we'll get to that in a minute. But we always start off with wisdom of others, we call it, and we come up with a quote that somebody said something pithy and interesting that we can learn from. So did you come up with one?
Yeah, putting me on the spot. You know, you referenced this pre-show and had a terrific quote, and I can't steal your quote. I'd like to use your quote. Your quote was the better quote, but I will go with my quote, which...
And then I'll one-up you with my quote.
So, yeah, right. We're here to have fun, right? So you can one-up me. I'm going to let you one-up me just this time, and then for the rest of the show, I will do the one-upsmanship. Okay?
Right.
We got
Shoot,
that.
Go ahead.
I guess go for it. That is the quote, and the reason I'm using that is because one of my brewers today asked me if he could do something, and my text response to him was, as Rocky told Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, go for it.
So you actually watched Rocky IV?
Yeah, well, it's been, I don't know, 20 years. I'm old, I'm probably older than you guys.
I remember
I'm
Rocky
not sure,
I.
but
did you ever watch Rocky, Bob?
I watched at least the first three. I never watched the last one. No,
I
did watch the last one.
You got to go to 4. You got to watch the Russian. You got to watch that fight.
You're not American if you...
I may have.
He's not a machine. Yeah. The Russian's been cut. You got to watch. So go for it. Works. We're going to go for it today, right?
All right. Let's go for it.
All right.
All I got to say, sad day when Bob's quote is the one-up quote over Michael's.
Well, we haven't used it yet.
It's a better movie. Better movie.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High is supposed to be released again soon. And the one quote I remember from that was so good was when the guy that thought he was so cool, Damone, I think was his name, he's telling the younger kid who he's, sort of mentoring in the mall, he's talking about how to pick up chicks, and he says, wherever you are, that is the place to be.
Yeah, I love it.
Wherever you are, that's the place to be. I thought that was cool.
It's very new agey.
Yes.
Well, it's such a good philosophy for life, really.
Yeah.
Be happy wherever you are.
Mark Ratner, the lessons.
Oh, is that his name?
Yeah, Ridgemont High School.
I don't remember that level of detail.
Oh, gosh, it's one of my favorite movies. I love
that quote and Phoebe Cates, there's nothing else in that movie I remember.
There's some few other good quotes, but I don't know if they're suitable for the venue here.
Probably not.
So let's get into your story. I mean, one of the things
let's talk more fast time.
Yeah, well, the audience probably wants to stay tuned in here. And being that I know you before, I know a little bit about you. And I remember the first time we met, and you shared with me that you were an attorney and decided to start Peticolas Brewing. Let's share with the audience, because I just think that's such a neat transition.
Sure. Yeah. I get this question a lot. Hey, man, I heard you used to be a lawyer, and my initial reaction to that is, well, I didn't used to be a lawyer. I'm still a lawyer. I mean, I educated myself. I still have a license. I'm still active. I can still practice law. I can still sue somebody if I want to. So, yes, I am still a lawyer. But,
okay.
I guess the practice of law definitely has taken a back seat to the brewing industry, or the brewery, I should say. In fact, before I got into the brewing industry, I thought to myself, I'll open up this brewery and I'll get this thing operating all on its own, and then I will go back to practicing law. And then, fast forward a couple years into it, and I'm having so much fun brewing. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to the practice of law anymore. So yeah, I'm still kind of at that point where I don't think I'll ever go back to doing it permanently. But it's something that I'm certainly proud of. So I graduated law school in '98 and went and practiced with my dad. I'm actually a 5th generation Texas trial attorney.
Oh, wow.
My great-great-grandfather, Alfred Brown Peticolas, opened the first Peticolas Brewing, or the first Peticolas law firm. Law firm, not brewery. I opened the first brewery. He opened the first law firm in Victoria, Texas in the 1870s. And since that time, we've had his son, Warner Marion, practice, his son, Warner William Craig, my grandfather, practice, my dad, Edward Kent, EK, practice, and I practice. So since 1870s, there's been a Peticolas practicing law.
Wow. So how did that go down? How did that go down with the family when you said, "I'm going to go do beer instead"?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the story. I ultimately, in 2005, opened up my own law firm. I said, my father had opened up his own law firm. They had kind of done this in the past as well. And so I wanted to open up my own, and I did that in 2005. And then in 2010, I came across this list of goals that I had prepared for myself, the list of goals I wanted to accomplish in the legal industry that I had written when I was in law school. Mm-hmm. So in 2010, I'm kind of going down the list thinking, oh, yeah, I did that. And basically, I got through the entire list.
Wow.
And so that was in 2010. I realized, man, I've really done everything that I set out to do. And I'm not the kind of guy that can just kind of go through the motions. I like to have a challenge. I like new things. And so it was at that point, I really have 2 passions in life, beer and soccer. And so I decided at that point, hey, let's turn to my passion for beer and investigate this opening up a brewery thing. Because one thing was for sure, there wasn't a soccer team out there that wanted a, wrong side of 30, blown out, right ACL, slow right midfielder.
So were you microbrewing like in your garage, just like a hobby, and said, oh, beer?
That's exactly the story. Yeah, I'm brewing in my backyard, little 5-gallon batches of beer in my backyard. The neighbors come in, what are you doing back there? What's that smell? My wife, she brewed. And, so when I was thinking about, hey, really the impetus for this came when I had received a business plan to invest in a brewery.
Okay.
And I was seriously considering it. My wife, Melissa, who I think you've met, Stephen, we're discussing, hey, what do we like about the plan? What do we not like about the plan? What would we do differently? What wouldn't we do? And she's from the pharmaceutical area. And in pharmaceuticals, it's all about first to market, right? Viagra. Everyone knows what Viagra does. There's a ton of pills that do what Viagra does, but everyone knows Viagra. It's the first one. You want to be first to market. And so going through this analysis of what we liked about this brewery, she goes, well, why do we want to be the 10th brewery to open up in the market where this brewery is? When there's not a brewery in Dallas, Texas, this is back in 2010, there is no brewery. She's we can be first to market here. Why wouldn't we do that ourselves? And that's kind of when a light bulb went off over my head. I'm like, why don't we do this ourselves? And I'm like, wow, why don't we do this ourselves? So I enrolled with the American Brewers Guild and took their intensive brewing science and engineering course and figured out how to scale it from the little 5-gallon batches I was doing in the backyard to, 500 gallons at a time that we do now. And I think you had a question that I eluded. I meant to come back to it, but now I forgot what the question was.
Me too. So let's just move on.
I plan to address it, but we'll
go
back and listen to the tape.
For those who are watching on the YouTube channel here or the video, Michael's brought beer, but let me just, for the record, no one's drank any of it yet.
Yeah, and in fact, he's going to pour this for both of us,
all right,
and neither one of us drink. So this should be interesting.
Neither of you drink? Well, y'all don't have to drink.
This is a terrible audience.
I'll have a glass of wine about once every few months, whether I need it or not.
There's the opening. So
what are we drinking
here?
We
get educated.
So this is the beer that we are best known for. This is Velvet Hammer.
Okay.
This is a 9% Imperial Red Ale. So this is a big beer, has a lot of alcohol in it, but really the trick to this beer is its balance. My approach to beer making is beer should be balanced.
Here, this one's got more in it, so I'm going to let you have that one just in case.
Cheers real quick.
Right.
Have a quick sip. And so although there's a ton of alcohol in this, there's a ton of hops in it, there's a ton of malt. The malt really balances out that hop, so it's a big beer, but it doesn't necessarily drink like a big beer. A lot of people will drink this beer and drink way too many of these beers. And next thing you know, I'm getting these crazy voicemails on the brewery line about, hey, Velvet Hammer's great, it's 2 a.m., just all kinds of hilarious messages being left. But this is the one that when I was in my backyard, Stephen, brewing beer, every time I brewed this beer, people were like, oh my God, dude, that beer is awesome. I love this beer. I can't find a beer like this.
Yeah.
And so when it came time to, hey, what are we going to brew first? December 30th of 2011, I got on that brew stand and brewed that very first beer of Velvet Hammer. Very first batch of Velvet Hammer.
Wow.
And I understand you had a pretty good success with that in the competition world.
The beer has taken off. I mean, between Observer and D Magazine, it's won best beer multiple times. But it's really the kind of the cult following that it took on immediately after the launch. I mean, I launched it at a place called Meddlesome Moth, which is like craft beer kind of haven. If you're a craft beer drinker, you're well aware of this place. And so we launched it there. I remember being terrified when I pulled it up, going, God, I hope this isn't a disaster. Hope people like the beer. And literally from the outset, those guys were like, man, Michael, you didn't hit a home run with this beer. You hit a grand slam with this beer.
Wow.
This beer has poured faster than any other beer we've ever had, ever. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this place is like the place to be if you're a craft brewer. You want to have beer here, and my beer just poured faster than anyone else that had ever been there. It was pouring down rain that night. I didn't think anyone was going to be there. The place is absolutely packed. But since that time, there's a guy, Tony Drury. He's with a band called Fish Fry Bingo originally, and now Shotgun Friday. They wrote a song called Velvet Hammer. It's a love song. It's great. When that thing came, I was playing it on a loop. Like, everyone in the brewery was going nuts because I was just playing that song over and over. There's a little old lady in Bedford who used it to make soap. There's a guy whose name is Pool Cue Velvet Hammer. There's a guy whose name is Motorcycle Velvet Hammer. I get pictures of that stuff. And
that was actually a bar in San Francisco when I was in high school.
Yeah, what? Oh, the Velvet Hammer?
We're not going to go into the details.
Yeah.
And this beer actually got married on our 1-year anniversary. There was a girl who had a Facebook page and had changed her relationship status to in a relationship with Velvet Hammer.
Oh, wow.
We thought that was funny, and one day she changed it to engaged. And her name's Allie Morgan at the time, and so for our 1-year anniversary, for part of the party, we had an actual wedding ceremony where Velvet Hammer got married.
Wow.
Yeah, how ridiculous is that? But yeah, that beer is just it's 50% of our sales.
And how do people buy this? Sure. I mean, do they have to go to Meddlesome Moth, or is it?
No, I mean, we sell. So we are a little bit unique. There's a lot of things that we do that are different from most brewers. One of them being that we only keg our beer. We're not available in a bottle or can.
Oh, wow.
So we deliver to about 500 restaurants and bars around Dallas, Fort Worth. We're strictly in North Texas. We only go 39 miles from the brewery. There are places like Whole Foods and Lakewood Growler and Crafton Growler that they'll fill up what I brought today, this nice big 1 liter or 2 liter. It could be any size, but they'll fill this up so that you can take it home.
But they fill it up from a keg.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's by design. So you guys don't want to go beyond 30 miles? You just want to keep it local, or is this just part of the where you've grown to so far?
It's definitely part of the strategy. When I got into this, like I said, when I was designing this, there was no brewery in Dallas. There were 2 in North Texas.
It's insane.
There was one in Fort Worth, and there was one in McKinney. And so now, there's 42, right? There's now 42 breweries. Most of these guys do package their product. When a lot of people zig, I like to zag. I've always, the freedom to be unconventional has always kind of been my vision, and I like to do things that are different than other people. So while we're still in a keg, I think we can best protect the quality and the integrity of our beer, and you're drinking what we most expect that beer to be when it's in a keg or poured straight out of a keg. It literally goes from our keg cold box into a retailer's cold box, as opposed to a bottle that sits out, in that big, nice 70-degree display on the grocery store floor, and it's degrading.
Okay, let's pick this up on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.
All right.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
My name is Ryan Carson. I'm the CEO of Beast Digital, where every day we use digital strategy to help candidates win. I just finished with Steve and Bob, and judging by how it went, I think they'll be finished soon too.
Welcome back to the next level. Steven's drunk, and I'm going to reintroduce us.
Took one sip.
So we're here with Michael Peticolas.
Smooth as velvet, hit you like a hammer. See how that works?
Go to peticolasbrewing.com. So before the break, you were telling us about the geography. Stephen had asked you.
Yeah.
Is it within a 30-mile radius and no further?
It's 39 miles, and
39.
I'm a classic attorney. What a normal person can say in 5 minutes, an attorney wants to tell you in 10, right? So I never even got to the answer to his question. But for me, a lot of brewers, again, about being unconventional and doing things differently than most. Most brewers want to get their beer anywhere and everywhere as fast as they can. For me, it was about focusing on this market and building a local product that the people here could really truly believe in and stand behind. And I think as a result, I'm trying to give Dallas some culture, right? I'm trying to give us something special that we have that, and Austin doesn't have, that Houston doesn't have. When I first started, and they're like, hey, man, can you bring your beer down? And I was like, well, man, I've been going down to Austin for good beer for years. Why don't y'all come up here for good beer? So I was really just trying to focus very specifically on this target because I saw it becoming not just local but hyper local, moving from 4 breweries to 42. For me, it's all about the home market, and we'll expand at some point. There's new geographic markets that we'll hit, but we haven't exhausted our resources here yet. It'll happen, but we also self-distribute, and again, we could go down another road that way, but we deliver our own beer, and so doing that right in other metropolitan areas has its challenges as well.
But the market's significant. You said there was nothing available. You're first mover, allergies. But how much beer do you know how much beer is consumed in Dallas-Fort Worth? I mean,
oh man, I wish you had asked me much closer to when I reviewed the last TABC report. I really can't give you
it's got to be huge, right?
Effort. I know that
it's
our
Texas.
beer a couple of years ago was like 1% of all the craft beer that had been consumed in Texas, but I can't give you an accurate answer.
And I'm not even looking for it, but it's a massive market.
Our market's huge. Our market is huge.
Yeah.
Texas was very slow to the craft beer table, but now they're in it. Some of the breweries around here, even in North Texas specifically, are making some fantastic beer. I mean, world-class examples of beer, and very quickly, I think Texas is becoming a state that's known to put out good beer. I mean, you go to the biggest award ceremony that exists in the States is the Great American Beer Festival. And typically your biggest winners are California, Oregon, Colorado, and then here comes Texas. And it's kind of been like that.
Why the lag to the microbrewery, you think?
For me, I guess it's a little bit speculation, but I think you go back all the way to Prohibition, right, where, no one could brew beer. You couldn't have beer. So late 20s, early 30s, you didn't have a lot of beer. And so while you have England and Germany experimenting with all these flavors, you didn't really have that happening in America.
Right.
And then when Prohibition was repealed, we kind of got marketed the, classic
Big
American
business.
lager beers, and so we really just kind of had that one style that we were drinking all through the 70s. And then comes Fritz Maytag at Anchor Steam in San Francisco, and Jim Cook over in Boston with Boston Beer, Sam Adams. And so it starts to kind of move from the East Coast and the West Coast through those states, and we're kind of centrally located,
Texas,
and it
Midwest
just didn't
for
get
last
here for a
year.
while, which was the great opportunity for me that I hit upon earlier when
Yeah.
my wife said, well, why be the 10th brewery to open up in that
Yeah.
market? Let's be the first one to open in this market, and people will notice.
So you have something else new going on in your brewery. Tell us about the tap room.
We do, yeah. So it took, we do things. My mantra, I guess, is do things properly, not quickly. So on our 5-year anniversary, December 30th of last year, we actually unveiled our new tap room, which we opened up full time beginning in January. So starting in mid-January, we now have a tap room, which is basically connected to our brewery. You can see our brewery. It's open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We have 17 beers on tap at all time. We even have a little super flight. If there's 3 of you, you can order a sample of all 17 beers that are on that flight. But yeah, we have food trucks come out, and so come on out today. We've got a big party going down tonight, the celebration, our half-year party tonight, where we'll have 150 of our best friends back in the grain room, and tap room will be open as well. But we always have fun stuff going on there. It's family friendly. We've got Cokes and Sprites and Fanta, and there's ping pong and foosball. It's a really cool, unique tri-level space, but it really exemplifies what we're about. You even look at the way we've furnished it. We started off making furniture from pallets that we received our grain on, and so we've incorporated that into our tap room build. Some of the stuff that we used on our old tours was built in the tap room. The very first kegs I ordered 6 years ago, we've made lights out of. So there's a lot of history about the brewery, and there is no better place to drink a brewer's beer than at the brewery.
Yeah.
So come on down. The tap room's a ball.
Cool. So when you started getting going, how did the big breweries, how did they receive you?
Well, how did they receive me personally, my brewery? There was really no reception because I'm such a small minnow when it comes to, there's a saying that they spill more beer than someone my size brews in a year. So those big brewers don't notice me individually at all. However, the 5,000 small brewers, when
starts whittling
are
away
combined, they take big notice, and they have taken big notice. And the past 2 years has been a very kind of turbulent, rocky time in craft beer. From 2010 to 2014, craft beer was just exploding. It went from like 4% of the beer market to 11% of the beer market. So your Budweisers, your big players, they started strategizing then, and what they've done is they've bought some of the jewels in the industry, right? So they've targeted. Even here we had Revolver out in Granbury. Some of my best friends in the I say craft beer, they're not in craft beer anymore, I guess, but some of my best friends are over there. They got purchased, right? So these guys have a strategy of, all right, let's acquire some of these big regional breweries, and that'll help alleviate some of the pain, some of the loss that we have in volume by picking these guys up.
So what's the rockiness now?
Well, I think you still have, to me, maybe I'm the only brewer that says this, but it's crowded out there. Like I said, when I opened, there was 4, and there's 40 now. My advice to you guys is don't go open another brewery. It's crowded right now. A lot of, I have a story. I have a passion for beer. I love beer.
Sure.
Someone came into my tap room and they said, hey, I was at this other brewery. I'm not going to give their name. And I asked them what their story was. And their story was, we saw everybody was doing it, and we thought it was a great way to make a lot of money.
Brilliant.
I thought, oh my gosh, that's your story? That's what you're telling people at your brewery?
But are they
where
making
you can
money?
Connect with these guys? That's the thing. I think they're built on these projections from the past 4 years, when those projections really aren't valid right now.
Yeah.
Things are slowing down because competition is big. I remember when I first started talking to Corey Pond at the Common Table, who's like, yeah, of course I'm going to serve a craft beer. You're the local guy. Of course I'm going to serve it. But when there's 40, I don't have that many taps. I'm not going to serve that many. So there's not room for everybody.
Sure.
But fortunately, the cream rises to the top, and, we've structured ourselves so we're not leveraged. We don't, again, I'm serious. It's about being free to be unconventional and do things that are different, and not having debt like a lot of these guys leaves us free to move where other people are not going to be able to.
So you guys are regulated by the TABC, I assume. Yes.
Yeah.
And so did they have to change regulations or do anything different because of the craft beer movement?
Wow. Do we have 2 hours? Yeah.
3.5 minutes.
The TABC, There's two TABCs. There's the TABC, the code that we have to follow, right? And then there's the TABC commission. All they're doing is interpreting the code. So sometimes they get a bad rap because all they're doing is enforcing these laws that are written into the TABC code, or the TAB code, the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code. It's the legislators who are writing laws that really are at this point, the pendulum is swinging towards passing legislation that helps big brewers more so than it is small brewers. And it's a huge frustration of mine because like I said, we're bringing culture to the city. We're bringing tourism to the state. I mean, I literally worked at the brewery by myself the first year. I brewed every beer, I kegged every beer, I cleaned the bathrooms, I delivered, I repped it. Now I've got like 30 employees. So the state's bringing in serious tax revenue when you have just my brewery, but all these other breweries. And the legislators really haven't gotten on board with, hey, let's help these guys, because the lobbyists for the distributors have so much money and they've lined their pockets for so long that they still have them in their pocket.
So they're at risk as well.
Yeah.
So you sued somebody over something like that?
Yeah, I did. In 2013, there was an anti-craft beer law that was passed by the legislature that made it illegal for a brewer to sell his territorial distribution rights. So let me kind of try to boil this down to its simplest form. Before 2013, if distributor A came to me and said, hey, I want to distribute your beer, I could charge them for the right to distribute my beer because it's into perpetuity. They have your rights forever. So if you're a little 1,000 barrel brewery, you can sell your rights, and if you go on and become $1 million barrel brewery, you're still with this distributor. What that law did was make it illegal for me to sell those rights. I had to give those rights away. So if I wanted distributor A to distribute my product, I could no longer sell those rights, and those rights are valuable. I had to give them away. But to add insult to injury, that was all they changed. They didn't change the fact that distributor A could then the next day go sell those rights to distributor B for $1 million. Wow. So here we are. Brewer 1 has to give away his rights to distributor A for free. Distributor A the next day could sell those rights to distributor B for $1 million.
That's ridiculous.
And to then add insult to injury, if I somehow were successful in breaking that contract, I did say they go into perpetuity, and pretty much they do, but if you can somehow void that contract and get your rights back, guess what? The brewer has to pay the distributor back the value of its brand. So everybody wins except the small little brewer. And since I built a career practicing law protecting people's rights, I was personally insulted by it and sued the state of Texas.
Did you win?
We did win. So October of last year, we won.
Congrats.
So we currently have those rights back. The state did appeal it.
I was going to say, how's the appeal?
And the appeal is ongoing, but the law is that law was declared unconstitutional, is not currently on the books, but we'll see what the future holds.
That's exciting. So
I never thought I'd be suing the state when I started to brew beer.
Hey, you're a trial attorney. You just can't help yourself.
I want to protect those rights. It's important.
Yeah.
All right. So quick question. If you had to give up your brewery to someone else, what's the one thing you'd want to make sure they know before you did that?
It's all about the beer. It's all about the beer. And that's those conversations are ongoing. When I talk about the turbulence, there's people wanting to buy, and there's discussions and mergers, acquisitions, buyouts all the time. We don't have time to discuss, all the nuances of that, but ultimately it is about the beer. I stress that with my people, with my employees, with the people who come into the brewery. It's about the beer. The merchandising's great, the marketing's fun, but you know what? The beer, the product has to be awesome, right? You can have an awesome product, you can have awesome branding, awesome everything, and still fail. Okay. And it all comes back to quality beer.
Go to peticolasbrewing.com to learn more and to feel the passion. Go to the tap room.
And if you want to see more or learn more about the show, please visit nextlevelshow.com. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.